You're watching Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO-TV. And now, here's two guys whose stirring rendition of "Oh Canada" before Game 7 brought the Rogers Centre crowd to tears, Evan and Joe.
I'm Joe Ticotsky down in New Haven, Connecticut.
And I'm Evan McFarlane here in, actually not St. Andrews, Bocabec, New Brunswick now. Shooting this one from home, baby.
Yeah, you're watching episode 89 of Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO-TV, the first episode of our 7th year on the air. Before we get rolling, I want to quickly remind everyone to support our two sponsors, the Oat Company of St. John's, Newfoundland, and Covered Bridge Chips from Woodstock, New Brunswick, located about 2 hours north of Evan's new mansion on the outskirts of St. Andrews that everyone's coming to see. Before we get on with our special interview for this episode, being our resident Canadian, Evan, how about some quick thoughts on the Blue Jays' just magical ride that came up a little bit short of the World Championship?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's not even a baseball thing from what they did. I think if you look at it, the way that it brought a whole country together, then my favorite thing about like the NBA and MLB for Canada is we only have one team, so the entire country rallies around it. But the people that I saw getting into the Blue Jays down that stretch were people that you would have no thoughts of even watching baseball. And I just, for example, I went to a party, a house, like a dinner party, and there was a bunch of kids that came with all the parents. And I went downstairs to see what was going on, and there was like 12 kids gathered around the TV, like cheering, like we're talking 5-year-olds to 12-year-olds that were like, yes, like Vladdy's coming up to bat, we have a chance. And like, how do you guys even know? Like, you've never watched a game. But it was such a vibe. And at that point, you're not even mad. Like, yes, they lost. That's horrible. It's more disappointment that they lost because they were such a cool team to watch. They're so aggressive and they played for each other. But I think just how they rallied a country in that whole series is incredible to see. I hope that they hang out with the Leafs over the offseason and kind of get them going too. But it was fun, and I think they're going to be good again next year as well. So we'll see what happens.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, coming up after the break, I have a weird feeling that Evan's got an illness coming on. So I'll be going solo for our special two-part interview with Toronto Blue Jays radio play-by-play announcer Ben Shulman. Ben will share his personal insights on the team's amazing season. You're watching Season 7's opening episode of Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO-TV. Welcome back to Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO-TV. The Toronto Blue Jays took Canada and much of America by storm in October and into early November, coming up one game short of winning the World Series, but leaving memories that will last for years to come. And we're happy to be able to bring back the Blue Jays radio play-by-play announcer Ben Shulman for a special two-part interview talking about his up-close view of that amazing season. Enjoy. Ben, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, for the first part of the interview, we'll focus on the regular season. Now, your second full season doing radio play-by-play for the Blue Jays started on March 27th and didn't end till November 1st, lasting an astounding 180 games. How'd your voice hold up throughout the season?
It held up all right, which was good. Even you could trace it back further if you want to, because I participate in a lot of our spring training coverage. Probably the first game I called was February 21st or 22nd of this season when spring training got underway. But with the exception of maybe one stretch in the middle of the year where I was a little bit hoarse for a couple of games, it held up better than I might have expected for the team with the most comeback wins in baseball. And a lot of that is to do with me just kind of understanding better, how to take care of my voice on a day-to-day basis and figuring out what I need to do because I actually like you mentioned longer season, and if anything I had less off time this year than I did in 2024, but felt like I had it in a good spot all season.
Did you have to call in sick or miss any games?
No, no, I did not have to miss. I did have to in 2024, which I was really tried I mean, you can only make it a goal so much. You can only control being sick so much, but I tried to make it a goal not to have it happen in 2025. And I have an allotted time off that I took, 3 series off to do another work thing that was basketball related, but in terms of missing games for health, did not miss any.
Okay. Now, your second season was obviously team wise a lot more successful than year one when the Jays finished last in the AL East. What were some regular season highlights for you? And when did you start to get the feeling that maybe the season was going to be a special one?
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint exactly. The feeling that or the first time I felt like they had a chance to be pretty good was they had a series against the Padres, who obviously turned out to be pretty good this year, and they just plowed them over 3 games, swept them in Toronto. I think there might have been a 14-0 game in there or something like that. Like just really gave them the business. And then they went to Tampa Bay and actually had a really brutal series where they scored about 2 total runs, maybe 3 total runs in a series against the Rays, got swept there, but then came back and Bo Bichette hit a pinch hit, ninth inning go-ahead home run in a rubber match against the Rangers. And just for them to bounce back and find a way to win that series after all their momentum had gone away. And I think in that Texas series, it was like DeGrom and Eovaldi. It was not an easy couple of matchups that they had to win a series. That's when you started to get the feeling like, okay, this team might be a little bit better than their 16-20 record a couple days ago would have told you that they were. And then the highlights, I mean, there were a couple really, so many great games that they played this year and so entertaining. Kevin Gausman threw a shutout. That was really, really fun to call. He had thrown a couple complete games last year, but to get the shutout this year was really special to see that in person at Rogers Center. A big highlight, and I think the time when a lot of people started to buy into this team was when the Yankees came for a 4 game set late June, early July, coincided with Canada Day, July 1st, and the Blue Jays entered that 4 game series down 3 games, and they swept all four to take the division lead.
Mhm.
A division lead that it turns out they would never give up for the rest of the year, and probably the most fun stretch of the regular season was the Jays actually stumbled really badly in the last 2 weeks and lost a good handful of games, giving up what should have been a really easy division lead. And the last 4 games of the year were fun because the Blue Jays and the Yankees were in a dead tie in record the whole time. And it was kind of who would budge first. And it turned out neither team did. They both won all
Right.
4 games, but the Blue Jays had the tiebreaker, which they knew, of course, going into that stretch. So by winning all four, they won the division. So that was, I had never done playoff baseball yet. Those last 4 days kind of gave me a bit of a taste of the intensity of it because every game felt so monumental over those last four.
Yeah. Now, your dad is Dan Shulman, and he does college basketball with Jay Billis for ESPN, but also is the Blue Jays TV play-by-play man. How far apart are the TV and radio booths at Rogers Center?
Not very far. They are separated by a floor, so we would be, we're both on quote unquote suite levels where boxes are. I would be on the 300 level, and he would be on the 400 level. But basically, if I could throw something through the ceiling of my booth, if I threw it just up and to the right, because he's kind of one up and then one booth over to the right, he'd be right there. So we definitely see each other a fair bit. It's just one staircase away, and my booth is close to the bathroom. So you're gonna end up seeing pretty much everyone when that's the case. Um,
Now, do you ever text them during games?
yeah, yeah, we'll go back and forth. Nothing. Really broadcast related usually because we can't hear each other call the games anyway, so we don't have any idea what each other are saying. But pretty much in the same way that we would have as kids, watching a Jays game, and maybe we're not in the same place, so we're texting about what a play that was, or who would you go to in this spot coming up, or whatever. It's just that kind of just fan stuff, really, just kind of taking in the game and thinking along with it.
Now, one of the websites that I read, they actually did an article. I don't know if you saw where they rated all of the local radio booth
I
for
did not see
MLB.
that actually. No.
Um, you were in the top. You were 13th out of 30, and you were
Top half. We'll take
ahead
it.
of the Yankees and the Cards, which for a second year guy is pretty impressive. You have a lot of radio guys that have been around forever, and for what it's worth, I think your dad's a lot better than that Joe Davis character from Fox that they
I can't
trotted out.
comment on
Nah,
that.
nah. Then I'm sure you saw the article in The Athletic on you and your dad.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That was a fun one to participate in with Richard.
A great article, just sort of talking about the camaraderie and the various goals. And but in keeping with the lighthearted nature of our show, I have to read you one of the reader replies from
Okay.
that article. One guy wrote, "I live in the U.S. I wish I could hear the Shulmans call these games instead of the Fox team." Nice comment. And of course, the next reader replies, "Come on, Dan is LeBron and Ben is Bronny." Now, I replied to that. I honestly replied to that and gave you some props, but you're smart for not for staying off those too much of the media stuff. But a great article, and I'd encourage anyone that gets the Athletic or the New York Times to read it. Well, we've been chatting with Toronto Blue Jays radio play-by-play man Ben Shulman, mostly about the regular season. After this short break, we'll dive into one of the most exciting playoff runs a team could possibly have. You're watching Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO-TV in St. Andrews. Welcome back to Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO-TV. We're talking with Toronto Blue Jays radio play-by-play man Ben Shulman. Ben, it certainly was a wild postseason ride. But let's start with the Yankees and the ALDS series. Was it your first time announcing a game at Yankee Stadium?
It was not actually. I did last year in 2024, got the opportunity to fill in on television. Now, the stakes of the series were far lower. It was a late August first place against last place in the division series in 2024, but I did have a little previous experience calling games there, thankfully. I don't think I did. There's some games there when Syracuse football is in action. Every once in a while they play a game there. I don't believe I called any of those, but I did get that one 2024 series in.
Now, from an announcer's view, what are the booths like compared to Toronto?
Booths are great. TV booth especially, but both the TV booth and radio booth I operated in were great in terms of vantage point. I think it's of the places I've called games, it's one of the best vantage points in all of baseball. It's a similar view to our radio at home, but TV at home is a little higher. TV in New York is on the same level as radio, and so you're really kind of right on top of the action, which I like a lot. For the Inside Baseball, really good media dining room. I appreciate the food that they put out there. They do a good job.
They don't fool around in the Big Apple.
No, no, they do well. But no, it is good. The booth, the radio booth was fairly standard for what you'll find in a road radio booth. But it wasn't incredibly cramped, which every once in a while you run into one that's pretty tight. So yeah, it's a good place to call games. And obviously in terms of atmosphere, and I know it's new Yankee Stadium, but still in terms of history, I think with Monument Park and the way it looks and the culture of baseball around there, it's a really cool place to call a baseball game.
All right, now if you dispatch the Yankees, move on to the AL Championship Series against Seattle. The Jays trail 2-1, 3-2 in the best-of-7 series. Now, at that point, people are probably starting to think maybe the ride's coming to a disappointing end. And then, as you know, down 3-1 in the seventh inning, up comes Connecticut's own George Springer. Do you start thinking of like a potential home run call, or do you just go with the flow?
I more go with the flow. I don't have, at least to this point, any signature call necessarily. Um, and I just, at least in that spot, just was not expecting it. The Blue Jays had generated very little offense in that game. They get into that position. Obviously, he's George Springer, so in a way, I should be expecting it. but he had just been nailed on the knee with a 96-mile-an-hour
Right.
fastball 2, 3 days earlier. So much so he was out of the lineup for a game. I wasn't sure he was able to do that at that point. I thought that he was in there because he can battle in at bats, take walks, and hit singles. Like I thought he was just kind of lining the bat up to the ball and hoping that there was enough on the pitch to get it over the infield. So I was not prepared for that. I was, as I often do with runners on second and third, just making sure that I remembered which runners were where in case he hits a signal and a single, and I'm calling multiple runners moving at the same time, who's on second and who's on third. Um, and so, I confirmed that it's Kiner Falefa on second and Barger on third, and then he just blasted it. So I was not prepared for it at all. It was kind of go with the flow. And typically I try to be simple, or I've learned it throughout this playoff run to try and be simple in those big moments because a lot of energy and a lot of emotion rushes into you at one time. So that was a fun one, though, really. I mean, that's kind of the World Series had a lot of highlights. It's hard to stack them up, but that's probably the top highlight for me of the playoff run. Although, um, certainly if they'd won the World Series, it wouldn't have been. But I think that for me, that's probably the top one.
Yeah. Speaking of the World Series, let's finish up with some World Series thoughts. Okay, the 18 inning, 6 hour, 39-minute game three. Are you
Oh yeah.
chugging the Red Bulls just to try and stay awake?
I'm downing water, like probably 6, 7 bottles of water at least consumed there during that game. And it's snowballing on you. So the later you get into the game, the more that water's impacting you in a good way, but also now you're having to run to the bathroom like once every 2 half innings or full inning, I should say, and just like scrambling a lot of the time. Yeah, that was an interesting one. I think I had said in the 14th or 15th inning, like Chris, in hindsight, I should have had more than one coffee. I think at the end of the day, there was never enough to be able to fuel me for that game, and I probably ate a little light because it's my first time calling a game at that ballpark, and it's game three of the World Series, and so I'm scrambling around trying to make sure I get to everywhere that I want to, and I didn't have the coffee or the full dinner that I would have. So that was an experience, but really a fun one. I mean, most people go their whole career. And the idea of calling an 18 inning World Series game is just like non-realistic, frankly. So for my first game at Dodger Stadium of the World Series to be that, I couldn't have picked a better way for the Blue Jays to lose in a way because, you left that game super tired more than anything else and obviously a bit bummed out. But I mean, if you're gonna lose in history and lose in some sort of
Yeah.
record that cements you there, and give an experience to your fans and yourselves and all of us covering the team that you'll never forget. So yeah, that was a fun one for the most part. I think there were some times where I was like, I don't know how much fun I'm having right now. We have another game tomorrow, but that was a fun one. And to circle back to what we first talked about when I jumped on, I was kind of pleasantly shocked that my voice was fine the next day. I was definitely concerned that I was going to have trouble because it's not only 18 innings, but every out is huge. So I had to really push it, and now we're on to the 14th. Like at one point, that's a big thing that you really got to give 100% of your voice for until you're in the 17th, and the 14th seems like a joke comparatively.
Yeah, yeah. Now, game seven, some epic home runs by both teams. Um, Maybe not game seven, but how soon after a game ends, like, do you go back and listen to your home run calls and say, "Oh, that was a pretty good one," or "I missed the boat on that"?
Yeah, game seven I still haven't listened to, I'll be honest. That one I got it. At some point I will. But I'm waiting a long time for that to numb a little bit before I listen to that one. But typically, our people are great. Show Ali or Nick Blackmore, our typical producers. They get the highlights reel, a highlights audio reel up on Twitter, probably within an hour of the game, maybe even less, while they're producing the post game call and talk show. So I usually just go to Sportsnet 590 The Fan about 30, 45 minutes after the game. And if it's there, I'll listen to it right away. Which sometimes isn't the best, to be honest. Sometimes you listen to something a week later and you feel a lot different about it than you did in the moment. But I have thoughts on this call I liked or this call I didn't like, or even this call I'm a little unsure about. Sometimes it's hard to know if it came off the way that I wanted it to in the moment. So I'll go listen that night just to at least have a baseline feeling for how it went and things to clean up going forward. And then after the year, I or middle of the season when I have a little bit of time, like an all-star break, find time to listen to full broadcasts because the highlights are great, but they're obviously only about 1% of the full broadcast, and I want to make sure the in between the highlights is sounding good as well.
Yeah. I want to finish up with this point. And Evan would have gotten to this if he wasn't homesick today. A lot of Americans, me partially included, but I'm a little more tuned in. A lot of Americans can't really comprehend how an entire country rallied around Canada's only MLB team during that World Series. A lot of non-baseball fans. Do you lean into that narrative, or do you take more of a business-like approach being in Canada?
I think I lean into it, to be honest. I think one of the coolest things, I think the Blue Jays have something that potentially no other North American sports team has, which is that they're just essentially a national team. I mean, there is a small pocket, it exists for sure, of Tigers fans that live near the Detroit-Windsor border in Ontario, and there's a pocket of Mariners fans who live near the border to Washington, the Washington, BC border. But outside of that, and most of that's due to proximity, outside of that, basically every Canadian is a Blue Jay fan. And because so many people love them as a baseline, when they're good, almost like it's the Olympics coming around, everyone gets involved. And suddenly, and not all of them are the most dedicated. Some people get into it and they're asking you, what a sacrifice fly is. But everyone's watching the game. Friends of mine who don't care about baseball at all, frankly, if they're even a little bit competitive, everyone starts to get into it because it really is, they have the maple leaf on their logo and had the maple leaf on their original logo as well. It's really viewed as a point of national pride, I think, for how this team does. And they are the Toronto Blue Jays, but I think people in British Columbia, Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, I got my order geographically mixed up there, but Saskatchewan, then Manitoba, I think, and then east of Ontario and north as well. I think they really all feel that they are their team as well, and they should. So I like to lean into it. I think it's a unique, cool thing that's a mix of obviously the market not having another team and the popularity of baseball in Canada, which is really huge. It's so much fun, and really, I think the thing that a lot of Blue Jays don't fully grasp when they come over to the team, but learn when you do things like preseason tours or whatever it might be, when you become a Blue Jay 3,000 miles away, people are still obsessed with you in a different spot and like would stop you on the sidewalk if they saw you and know everything about you. And so it's just I think it's an aspect of the team that when they're playing well, you have to lean into because it's a huge part of being a Blue Jay fan is being connected with everyone else in the country who roots for them also.
That's a good sales pitch for free agents.
It's
Well,
hey,
Ben,
it's the customs only take 5 minutes at the end of the day.
Ben, I can't tell you how impressed I've been with your poise and great on-air voice. I actually listened to a lot of your game calls numerous times on the Sirius satellite radio app, especially as those games got later and later into the night. And on behalf of Evan, we're both just so thankful that he gave us so much time just 5 days after the season ended. So I'd like to thank you once again for coming on the show, and best of luck with the winter and in future Blue Jay seasons.
Thank you very much. Very kind of you to tune in and to say that, and always fun to come on and enjoy doing it. We'll get on with Evan next time when he's in a better spot for that, and looking forward to the winter.
I would say when his Maple Leafs win and all, but that could be for
Hey, this is
forever.
the year. You never know.
All right. Well, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you.
What a great job once again by Ben Shulman. He is the man.
Oh, he's awesome. Like, he's so good. I didn't even have to be there. That was perfect. I was in.
Just hit play. Well,
Yeah.
that's it. That's it for episode 89. It was we open our 7th season here on Mc&T Sports Report. I'm Joe down in New Haven, Connecticut.
Evan here in New Brunswick.
Thanks to Patrick Watt and Florence Mitchell for producing and editing a show that Miguel Rojas is absolutely not allowed to ever watch.
He's on the non-invite list.
We'll see you in late December for our last show of 2026. This is Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO-TV in St. Andrews.